So I guess there's going to be no hitters this year. Remember a few years ago when they said there were too many?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they call it these days on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. The best way to get hold of me is by leaving a comment here on YouTube. I'm going to read some of them and leave that hashtag Everyday Sully. It helps us find the comments. It helps us find you. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And let's get down to the trivia question. It was a Yankee-oriented question because we had Stacy Gatsoulias on the other day. Who was the first pitcher to earn a postseason victory for the New York Yankees? And Joseph Cooter, 5763. I'm going to go on a wild guess in the trivia question, and it'll probably be wrong, but I'm going to say Bob Sharkey, which is a terrific guess, a Yankee pitcher from the era of the 20s, but alas, not correct. Big John, 08865, who gets us a lot of these questions right. Carl Mays of the Yankees, who's the answer to several trivia questions because he was the first Yankee to win a postseason game for the team. He won game one of the 1921 World Series between the Yankees and the Giants. So World Series played entirely in the Polo Grounds. He also was the pitcher on the mound when the Red Sox clinched the 1918 World Series, which was played early because of the Spanish flu. Back then, there was a huge, basically epidemic that hit America, and this deadly disease that caused just lots of damage and lots of death and everything like that. And the best way to deal with it back then was to wear a mask and socially distance. Man, what a strange time that must have been. But Carl Mays was on the mound when the Red Sox won the 1918 World Series. And for a long time, for a big chunk of my life, that was the last Red Sox World Series title. And there's a third thing that he's known for, probably the thing he's best known for. When he played for the New York Yankees in 1920, he threw a pitch that hit Cleveland shortstop Ray Chapman in the head and killed him. So he was the only person to kill someone with a pitch. So there you go. Carl Mays pitched for the Red Sox, pitched for the Yankees, and pitched for death. There you go. By the way, that was nice and morbid from your pal Sully. Game just ended about maybe 10-15 minutes ago. The Philadelphia Phillies basically knocked out the Mets tonight. Any hope that the Mets are going to have with about 20 games to play? Actually, it's more like 18 games to play. The Mets are now 8 games behind the Phillies. It's not going to happen. You got to win these head-to-head games if you have any hope to make up that ground. And it was a long shot at best. It was a 7-game difference. Maybe a couple of wins could drop it down to 6 and maybe to 5. And you hope that the Phillies pull what the Mets did in 2007. But nope, it's not going to happen. The Phillies are not going to give up the division here. Nolan McLean did not have his best game. But he only allowed 1 run, pitched into the 6th, only allowed 1 run. And he got the loss, his first loss in his big league career. And he pitched into the 6th, gave him a little bit of length, but the Phillies gave up nothing. And the Mets had runners on 2nd and 3rd and 1 out. And then Duran got 2 strikes. The final strike against Alvarez, he wasn't even throwing him strikes. He just was so fishing. The pinch runner, I think there was a ball that was hit into right field, and Mauricio was a pinch runner for Pete Alonso. And I think the third base coach could have been a little more aggressive, just a tad more aggressive. Of course, if the runner was thrown out at home, they would be killed for it. But I don't know, it's so clear that runs were such a premium, you're forced to throw. But either way, The tying and go-ahead runs were left stranded, and the Mets wound up losing the game 1-0. And you know what? You got to give the Philadelphia Phillies a little bit of credit here. I thought when they lost Zack Wheeler for the rest of the season that was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be a death blow for the team, but I thought it was going to really, really put a damper on them. And one of the big reasons I thought it was going to put a big damper is obviously you're going to lose Zack Wheeler, who is an all-star caliber pitcher, always in the conversation for the Cy Young Award. And that announcement came like in the middle of August, that they weren't going to have their ace. I mean, yes, Sanchez pitching great, but I mean the person who's been their ace for the last bunch of years, and really one of the great solid pitchers. And let's take a look. I mean, like their record, pretty much since the middle of August when we found that out. You know, they let's just say from August 15th, they were up by 5 games at that time. And in the last, little, not quite month, they have, let's see what the record. I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website on this planet Earth. And Philadelphia is 14-8. 14-8 since finding that out, and really doing a wonderful job, and has secured that spot. By the way, the Giants are 13-8 in that same period of time. Just remember all those losses here and there, and a one extra win here, one extra win there, they'd be right back into it. Who knows? Maybe they'll win tonight. But the fact of the matter is, Aaron Nola pitched terrific tonight. He gave Philadelphia exactly what they needed: 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, let up 5 base runners. Robertson did the job. Stram, who looked a little shaky when he left that walk, but he wiggled out of that in the 8th. And then Duran, who did not have his best stuff, almost blew the save, but didn't. And when it became clear that Alvarez was swinging at anything that was within 10 feet of the plate, he said, I'm not going to throw you a strike. Why the hell would I throw you a strike? And Philadelphia got the job done. And they were the team I picked to win the World Series. And do you know what? Dang it. Yes, Milwaukee is terrific. They're currently losing right now, but they're terrific. And Milwaukee does nothing wrong. And I would have to lean towards Milwaukee because of the way they play, and there's no real holes on the team. However, if Nola pitches well, and you've got Luzardo, you've got Suarez, and you know that Schwarber can get hot, you know that Harper can get hot. Now, Trey Turner's hurt. And when you get hurt and you're nearly in the middle of September, you get worried about, okay, do they need any time back? But Philadelphia, I'm telling you, this was a big game, because if they can put the division on ice, they could and give themselves a little bit of distance from the National League West. They could rest some of their players in that final week and get themselves ready to go. And if this team's ready to go, let me tell you something, brother. This team is going to be really, really dangerous. There's nothing like going to a baseball game live, and I've been to a couple of different stadiums this year. I've been to AT&T Park in San Francisco this year. I've been to Dodger Stadium, and yes, I went to see an A's game in Sacramento. And no matter where you are, whether you're packed in Chavez Ravine in a playoff game last year, or in a weird minor league environment in Sacramento, it's still amazing to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough parts. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It kind of takes some of the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that takes advantage and your needs as a fan and gives them back to you. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. All fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. And you know what? It makes it so simple. I can see exactly the view from my seat, and fees are included. You know the total up front. No surprise fees. No, where is that? Oh, that's the extra little fee you have to pay. Nope. And you get the zone deals, because I have where I like to sit. In Dodger Stadium, I like to sit in the second deck, a little bit along the first base line. But sometimes I like to sit along the third base line when I'm in San Francisco. And in Sacramento, I need to sit in the shade. So you get the zone deals, you pick the section, they get the best deal. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets before. So what you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tab, ticket, go! Download Game Time today. That's Game Time, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. So for about 10 minutes, I was transfixed by a game that was being played between Kansas City and the Cleveland Guardians because Slade Ciccone was taking a no-hitter deep into the game. And he is exactly the type of pitcher that I would expect to be part of be the no-hitter for this year. Slade Ciccone, who was part of the team that beat the Phillies, in fact, pitched in the NLCS when the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the Phillies and got to the World Series. So he has a little bit of playoff experience. But last year, his final year with Arizona before he was traded to Cleveland for Naylor, his ERA was 6.66. It was the ERA of the devil. And going into today, his first season with Cleveland, his ERA is 4.78. He's a complete nondescript pitcher. So naturally, he would have been the pitcher that I would expect to throw the first no-hitter of the year. And he pitched great. He pitched a no-hitter into the eighth. And he let up a leadoff single. And you could just see this, the air went out of the balloon for him. And good, the crowd that was there in Cleveland, good for them. They gave him a standing ovation and everything. But yeah, that was if it looked like he was going to be the one to do it, because it's so funny. Like Roger Clemens never threw a no-hitter. All right. Greg Maddux never threw a no-hitter. Tom Glavine never threw a no-hitter. And, Philip Humber has a perfect game. You kind of have to put an asterisk next to Pedro Martinez, because he had a game where he threw 9 perfect innings, but Montreal didn't score a run for him. And he finally let up a hit in the 10th. But, unusual names can throw a no-hitter, and great names can go the whole career without one. But we are now perilously close to having this be the first season since 2005, 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago today, as the song said, that was the last time we had a season that did not have a no-hitter. And the last no-hitter, I had to rack my brain to try to think of what it was. I thought it was Blake Snell. I was trying to think of like last year who threw a no-hitter, and I said it was Blake Snell. I think it was Blake Snell. And I was all ready to go to the mattresses and say, yes, Blake Snell was the last person to throw a complete game. To throw a no-hitter. He's the last one to throw a complete game no-hitter. Last August, when he was pitching for San Francisco, he threw a no-hitter against the Reds. And Kevin Cash of the Rays was watching that game saying, take him out. He's throwing a masterpiece. Take him out. But actually, the last no-hitter was thrown almost exactly a year ago on September 4th, 2024. Shota Imanaga and then Pearson and Hodges as relievers, a combined no-hitter by the Cubs against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, I just remember in 2021, I was doing this very podcast, not this particular episode, but I was doing the podcast, and it was the year, obviously, after after COVID, and this COVID was still going around, and that was the year where I made if you none of you remember this, I had an in-joke that I had on Twitter, or whatever it was called then. I think it was called Twitter back then, where every single day I would list whoever was pitching for the Padres that day and say, I predict that, Matt Strahm or whomever is going to, on this day, will throw the first no-hitter in San Diego Padres history. I did that for all of the 2019 season and all of the COVID year of 2020. And then on April 9th, 2021, before, an hour or so before game time. So I predict today, April 9th, 2021, Joe Musgrove will throw the first no-hitter in the history of the San Diego Padres franchise. And then that tweet just exploded because people were like, how did you predict that? How did you predict that? Because I've been doing it every single day. But I also remember that year, and I have it up here. This isn't all from memory, but I know Musgrove threw the first no-hitter of the year, first in Padres history. Carlos Rodon, who pitched for the White Sox, then John Means of the Orioles, Wade Miley of the Reds, Spencer Turnbull of the Tigers, Corey Kluber of the Yankees. I bet you forgot he pitched for the Yankees. Combined no-hitter with Zach Davies, Ryan Tepera, Andrew Chafin, and Craig Kimbrell for the Cubbies. Tyler Gilbert for the Diamondbacks. Corbin Burns, remember him? And Josh Hader for Milwaukee. Trevor McGill, Drew Smith, Joely Rodriguez, Seth Lugo, and Edwin Diaz, the second Mets no-hitter ever. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was the next year. So, yeah, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 9 no-hitters. Did I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Yeah, there were 9 no-hitters. And there were a lot of people saying, you know what, are no-hitters no longer special now? They're not as special now. I mean, if Wade Miley and Spencer Turnbull, they're not special anymore. And I kept saying, are you nuts? They're great. They're amazing. They're wonderful moments. Yeah, but they happen so often. They're flukes. Look at the names I just rattled off there. Tyler Gilbert threw a no-hitter. Corey Kluber, who won multiple Cy Young Awards, didn't get his no-hitter till he was a Yankee. Wade Miley gets himself a no-hitter. And if you look at, Domingo Germán threw a perfect game. And, Ronel Blanco, like on his second or third start of his life, managed to pull one off. They're weird names. If you go down the list of, yes, Justin Verlander has 3. That makes sense. But Mike Fiers has 2. That's weird. Jake Arrieta has 2. That makes sense. Max Scherzer has a pair of them. Yeah, that makes sense too. Homer Bailey has 2. 2. If you say, hey, I saw the Homer Bailey no-hitter, you can actually say which one. That's weird. Jonathan Sanchez got one for the Giants. Of all the Red Sox pitchers, they include Clay Buchholz, they include John Lester, they also include Hideo Nomo, and they don't include Roger Clemens and Pedro Martinez, or Chris Sale for that matter. Dwight Gooden got one, but it was when he was washed up. When you look at all the great, Brave starters, Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, Kent Merker started one combined no-hitter and then got one on his own. And he was the only one of that group. It makes no sense. Doesn't make a tiny bit of sense. Fernando Valenzuela gets his no-hitter when, he's kind of the tail end of his career, or at least the tail end of his time as being a pitcher for the Dodgers. And Joe Cowley. It just happens. No-hitters are a weird phenomenon. And you can have strange people, pull it off. You can have people you're not expecting to pull it off. And then you can have the people you completely expected to pull it off, not pull it off. In 2024, Ronel Blanco, Dylan Cease, Blake Snell, and then the combined no-hitter for the Cubbies. That was the last time we had a no-hitter. So for those of you who wrote into me back in 2021 saying, does this happen too often? Is it no longer special? Let me fast forward to the year where it didn't happen once. And in the span of 3 days, we had one go into the 8th and one go to 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, only to have that team lose the game. Then I would go back to those people who made comments and say, what do you think about it now? And speaking about comments from viewers, we're going to read a few of them when we come back. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives like me. If organizing your finances is not the thing for you, Monarch is the thing for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and then you can feel like you're in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And you know what? Sometimes you're not saving as much as you think. Sometimes your 401k is not investing well. And sometimes you have, subscriptions and things like that you forgot you even had. Well, guess what? You can maximize your investments and increase your savings rate, easily reviewing your finances with your partner, your spouse, whomever, or your financial advisor for that matter, giving you a clear view of your financial health week to week, long term, etc. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's monarchmoney.com. All right. Just before we keep going here, I just want to say thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. For your second listen, actually just keep it right here to the Locked On MLB feed and listen to the Locked On MLB game night, every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night and Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Okay, let's listen. Let's go through some of the viewer responses I've got. I talked about the passing of Davey Johnson. And the Kells says, best O's manager for years until Buck came along. I remember hearing he got fired the same day he won Manager of the Year. Peter Angelos never lived it down. Yeah, it never made a lick of sense to me. But it also never made a lick of sense that the Reds got rid of him 2 years prior either. We had Chuck Freeman of Locked On Brewers a few days ago talking about the Brewers, and he was pretty confident. He had a right to be. Jeremy Smith 8033 says, Chuck is awfully cocky these days. He will get a wake-up call in October. It's a distinct possibility. Or this could be like that year in 2019 when finally everything came together for the Nats. They beat the Brewers in the playoffs that year. And Jeff Cohen, 9924, on that same topic says, could the Brewers be peaking too soon? In terms of peaking too soon or saving up, those are the type of narratives that are completely written in retrospect. Completely written. I've seen teams go on a rampage in September and then continue that momentum to a World Series. Well, then the momentum carried them through. I've seen some teams have a horrible September, and like the New York Yankees in 2000, or the St. Louis Cardinals in 2006, and then flip a switch and go on to win the World Series. They're like, well, you know what? They were saving it up. And I've seen instances where teams have a phenomenal September and then get a roundhouse kick to the face in the postseason. I remember the Detroit Tigers in 1987 is a great example. The Atlanta Braves in 1993, and then the Minnesota Twins in 2006 went on a rampage, won the division on the final day of the season, and had a team full of all-stars and got swept by the A's. So that sort of thing, peaking too early, peaking too late, that's all written in retrospect. And nothing, you can't do anything about it. We talked Blue Jays for a little bit. Jason Milley, 3320, said Blue Jays won't be in the World Series. Okay, go to FanDuel with that one. Not tough enough, not unified enough. Just let fam punk their catcher. They didn't do anything about it. Again, tough enough, unified. These are the things that you write about in retrospect. I've seen plenty of teams that look like they were coming together, down the stretch and then be eliminated before you could say anything. I've seen a lot of teams stumble and look like, oh my God, there's infighting amongst the team, and then suddenly they win it all. It happens. All done in retrospect. What was this? Some of these I'll get to another day. I talked about the 1995 and how so many fan bases and so much of today's modern baseball the seeds for the modern baseball fandom were planted in 1995 in the aftermath of the strike and the lockout. And Shanae Miller Ashton says, in 95, I was 9, and the Mariners got me hooked on baseball. Yeah, that's one of the things I said when there were so many people were walking away from baseball after the strike and the lockout. There were new fans, including Seattle, who finally got something to root for in that absolutely magical season. We talked about the Yankees with Stacy Gotsulias and Robert DeMarco 7813, who is a longtime listener of the show, says 19 games to go, 2.5 games behind. Yankees are coming for the first place seed in the L. Huge next 6 games decide their fate. Yeah. And as I said, I have to give them credit where credit is due. I was all over trashing the Yankees as big bullies. I compared them to Biff. And I said, you got to show us something. And they showed us something. They won the series against Houston and against Toronto. They won both those series. And they did so. In both instances, they won a game after a frustrating loss. And so this is a big couple of weeks, especially because we know the Yankees can beat the snot out of the tomato cans in this schedule. So, get through the Detroit and Boston and stay within striking distance of Toronto, and they could win the division. And if they do, they have as good a right now. They have as good a shot of anybody of winning the American League pennant, just because there you go. When I mentioned a few weeks before that maybe they should, if Bochy leaves the Rangers, that maybe the Yankees should kick the tires on them. Uncle Vatra says, what is Bochy, like 80 now? I figured he would have retired after getting the Rangers their ring. LOL. He's 70 and still one of the best managers in baseball. And if the goal is a short-term goal, you want to win a ring, which should be the goal of any team. And if you want a quick fix to get him in and get the team over the top, and I'm not talking about the arm wrestling film with Sylvester Stallone, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a couple other ones, but I can't remember if I've read this one. This is one. This is Bart Star 100 said the umpires. This is based on a game a couple of days ago. The umpires gave the Phillies their winning margin. I expect the same in the playoffs. Hope I'm wrong, but MLB is corrupt. I'm sorry. They're bad umps, and they're good umps, and bad umps make mistake. You're not going to get me in this conspiracy that MLB is corrupt. If MLB is corrupt, why have the Yankees played the Dodgers once since 1981? And we had a World Series between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers. If they were corrupt, they would want to get the biggest TV shows, and they would want to get Mike Trout in the World Series and Ohtani in the World Series every year and Aaron Judge in the World Series every year. Come on. That's just sour grapes, and I'm sorry. You are not going to have that on there. Can't remember if I read this one or not, but it's one of my favorite comments I ever got. It's from Climber4434. Yawn knows nothing about baseball. Confirmed. But it's going to bring us to today's trivia question, which is this. Talk about the Phillies. Hoping to have October success. Trivia question. Who was the president of the United States when the Phillies won their first playoff series? The first time the Philadelphia Phillies, whose existence goes back to the 1880s, the first time, maybe before that, if I'm not mistaken, the first time they won a playoff series of any kind, who was the president of the United States? Put the answer right down there. I love the fact for a while the Phillies, that franchise, were called the Philadelphia Quakers. The Philadelphia Quakers. And it was apt because the team did not put up a fight. Talking about the Phillies, who showed us a lot since the Wheeler injury, the near no-no, and answering some of your questions. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.